Hi, and welcome to the Penny Lane Podcast. We have a very special guest today, MandoTrading. I very much suggest that you follow him on Twitter. He is just a wealth of knowledge. I learned so much this episode about options trading, dart pool, options flow, all kind of things that I really knew nothing about. And my favorite part about this episode was how much Justin was into it. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, Chris. Welcome to the Penny Lane Podcast. We're so happy to have you on.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Great. Justin, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. I'm excited. I like some of the topics that we discussed that we're going to talk about. I'm amped.
Cool. So, Chris, I'm so happy to have you on. And as I've told you privately, we put a lot of work into finding guests for the podcast, and I've been following you on Twitter for a while and really love the information you're putting out, your whole vibe, and I'm just thrilled that you agreed to come on.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. And you're a great follow as well. I saw that you had the Benzinga affiliate as well, so I'm happy to be here.
Cool. Yeah, we actually have a show on Benzinga on Wednesdays that we do that's really fun. We actually just finished.
Very cool. Yeah. I've been on the aftermarket therapy with Stock Mom and Sage of Trades a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
Actually. But yeah, no, definitely happy to be here.
Cool. Well, you also have just recently started a stock podcast YouTube. Can you tell us a little bit about what your motivation for doing that was and how the experience has been so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast can be found on YouTube. It's Flow Bounty Hunters, and it's with myself, MandoTrading, and OPT Florida. So yeah, we kind of just spur of the moment. We're like, hey, we should just do a podcast. We, spend so much time on Clubhouse every night preparing for the market for the next day. So we figured, you know what, like we could do something with this. We're doing it anyways. We think a lot of people could benefit from this information. I remember when I first got onto Twitter, I wasn't really able to communicate with those people who had the huge following. So a lot of the times the questions that I had for them, they would go unanswered. So OPT and I, we figured, you know what, this is a way we can get some of those people on. They could talk about their strategy, their strengths, and, take strengths from everybody, and then, allow the listeners to kind of, pick what works best for them and go with it,
For sure.
So kind of get that voice because, you see people tweeting and stuff like that, roughly what their strategy is, but you don't know exactly what they're thinking when they're entering a play or even how they're finding those plays. So kind of giving that, ground up work. We've had some cool people on so far. We've had Unusual Whales. We had a psychotherapist to talk about the emotional side of trading. King Blamey is another one with King Street, and Mel Stone from Black Box. So, 4 very different traders, all great, but they're all different. And, it's important to kind of find what works best for you. One size doesn't fit all in this game.
We have found that so much as well. It's been such a privilege to get one-on-one time with people who you would never get to talk to like that. It's been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all perspective, and there's definitely a lot of newer people coming onto Twitter, trying to learn, or find their way, and it's just helpful stuff. I mean, we have fun doing it. OPT, he's taught me so much over, the last 6 months that I've known him. So we just thought it was a cool thing, and I try to put myself in the the listener's shoes when I'm asking questions to him and trying to get deep and trying to learn a lot more. So that everybody can kind of benefit from it.
So before we jump into it, I've got to ask you, you have to tell us obviously about your name, Mando, and I'm assuming Star Wars, Mandalorian, but let's just get that out of the way, Chris.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my my first Twitter account on was not actually MandoTrading. I was actually a Phantom Trading, Danny Phantom. I just picked a random thing. But I also saw there was a couple of them out there, and I didn't really want to, associate with anybody else. So I said, all right, I got to change this. So back in December, I was watching The Mandalorian on TV, and I said, let's do it. So went with it. And then, suddenly, like, I guess I was putting out some good information. people started to follow me and stuff like that. So I had to go out and buy a $300 Mandalorian helmet with custom green stripes on it for the market, and that's my profile picture actually. So, but yeah, no, I'm a Star Wars guy. So Clubhouse is a voice app. At first, it was just you needed like a sign up code. Now it's open to everybody. Everybody can use it. But yeah, it's just an easy way for the group that I trade with to kind of communicate. Throughout the day, we trade together every day. We do our watch list at night. I have a small group, 10, 15 people. And yeah, they've become really good friends of mine, and we hang out there a lot, and beyond trading as well, we sometimes we'll watch some games or something like that on in the background, and we just kind of chill out.
Chris, I'm really interested in how you found your tribe and then got all of that going on Clubhouse.
Yeah, believe it or not, it was actually Twitter Spaces that kind of rounded up this group. For the most part, everyone that was in the group that I trade in now, they'd all known each other from a prior trading group. They kind of broke away, started doing their own thing. And then, as time went on, we were in spaces together. We started to, chat more and more. And then, Clubhouse came around, and then we kind of went all in on trading together throughout the day. We never did that at first, but over the last 2 months, I'd say we've pretty much been trading every day together. So it's been really cool. I'm always a huge advocate for finding people to trade with and stuff like that, because I think it's a huge help. Going at it alone, sitting at the screen all day by yourself, your mind can go places. So it's nice to have other people to talk to, for sure.
Is that private? Is that just like you guys, or is it anybody can join in if you've got the link or whatever? Is it an open forum or is it just
I mean,
at
this point, we still keep it small. It's just kind of us talking about it. But, one thing that OPT and I were talking about is maybe we do go live trading sessions, maybe on YouTube Live or something like that. I mean, the past 2 weeks have been pretty slow, but before that, the first 30 minutes of the market they're hectic. It's a lot of fun. Everybody shouting stuff out, things that they're seeing. So, I think it would be cool for other people to kind of come and check that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before we jump into it, what's your kind of background on trading, and how'd you get into it? And how did you end up with kind of your current strategy, and what type of trader you would call yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is year 3 in the market for me. I mean, when I first got started, I honestly had no clue what the hell was going on. I was working a shitty job. I don't know. Am I allowed to curse on here? Sorry.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. We encourage it.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah. So I was working a really shitty job, and it was tough work. It wasn't paying me a lot of money. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to go about this. I was just finishing college. I was in grad school, and I was like, look, this sucks. I got to find another way to make some money, because I can't do this for much longer. So started getting in the market. Like I said, didn't know much of anything, but figure, you know what? I'm going to invest in some things that products I use, things like that. So that kind of got me into the rhythm of everything. And, I would say, 12, 13 months later from that point, it was actually, 2 months before the COVID crash, I really started sitting down and actually learning technicals.
Wait, that's amazing timing.
Yeah. So I was actually before, I mean, luckily for me, I wasn't trading before then. I really wanted to kind of learn how to do it. So, I really sat down, because I was still working that same job. I really just decided, look, I want to get good at this. I see people do this for a living. One of my best friends, his father, full time, he does it, and he does really well for himself. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. I want to learn how to do this. So about a month where I was really just focused on, learning how to do it, kind of slacked off a little bit. But then once COVID happened and I started to work from home, I was like, game on. I'm going to go get in this, balls to the wall, go after it. And, it's been awesome. I really, really enjoy it. It's something that I'm, thinking about all the time now. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So how did you develop your current strategy? If you want to share that and
Yeah, absolutely.
how you would end up calling yourself the type of trader that you are.
Yeah. So, I had always been a small cap trader. I was trading, the SNDLs of the world. Then I started to move into SPACs when those got hot. And then, this past February, as many of you may know, it got super choppy and it just wasn't working. So, I wasn't losing a ton of money, but I also wasn't making money. And I was back at work, grinding it out. And I was just like, look, I need to figure it out. I need to play the hot hand right now because all the indices were killing it, but my portfolio was not. So that's when I started hopping into these spaces. I was kind of spreading my knowledge when it came to SPACs and small caps, but I heard from a lot of really smart people on, trading these large cap options. So I kind of dove right in and, I met OPT Flow. KD Investing is another great trader. Pete B. Ramblin. I met these guys who had a lot of experience in this and just started picking their brain every day, all hours of the day. When it came to OPT, OPT is a flow trader. And what he means by flow trader is he is watching options flow come in throughout the day, and he's identifying what you may call unusual options flow, to find his plays. So, it didn't really happen overnight, but started to feel more and more comfortable trading these large cap options.
That is, I think, to me, one of the most kind of well-branded, maybe not well-known or well understood, but there's been a lot of people who have found success with it. And then I think kind of parlayed that into training and some stuff you see on TV. And did that originally catch your eye as well? And I mean, I guess in general, what are your thoughts about that? That I kind of called it something that a lot of people know of, but don't know a lot about.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I would say, I mean, just like everything else, some people like using Bollinger Bands, some people like using VWAP, some people like using options flow. It's not 100% accurate, because if it was, then everybody would do it. So it's just another indicator. It's one that I really like. When I first got into it and I'm seeing all this money going to specific tickers, I'm like, wow, this is a lot of money for, whatever I was looking at that point. So then I started to kind of, develop an idea of how I want to go about this, not just, oh, wow, there's $100,000 sweep on Apple, I'm going to go in. There was a lot, to learn more than just, oh, wow, I saw one call option purchased on Apple, I'm going to follow. There's a lot to it. OPT has been a huge help. Like I said, he really taught me the way of the flow. And we actually have a YouTube video that kind of breaks down our flow strategy from start to finish. And I'll get into it with you guys, of course.
Yeah, I'd love to put it in the show notes. So if you could get us that, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So, so when it comes to options flow, of course, I am one that I follow sectors very closely. So let's say, semiconductors have been super bullish. That's one that I'm keeping my eye on. And then I see NVIDIA, AMD, those tickers, they start to get hit repeatedly. And what I mean by repeatedly is big orders. So they're putting a lot of money down on the same strikes, even if it is, let's say for NVIDIA, an example from today, we were seeing the 222.5 come in. We're also seeing the 225s come in, meaning that they're putting a lot of money down on this. They believe it's going to go up. So I'm going to follow that. I'm going to bet on that as well. I don't blindly go into these plays. I also do check technicals, but sometimes it's so overwhelming. I know I'm going to kind of go off topic here, but there's one today, actually, IronNet, that absolutely ripped like $10 after hours. You can see there were some orders that came in today that I was watching, and I didn't act on them, but I saw orders for IronNet come in today at 356, 357, and this says 429, but that's That's not true. It's not going to come in after 4 o'clock. But we had 7.2 million. We had a 480,000. We had a 313,000. We had a 1.7 million. We had a 948K. They were all on different strikes, and they're in the money. But for them to be putting that much money down, that tells me they know something. It's going to go up, right? So
that's a lot of money. What are those contracts selling for currently?
So it's not, we're not going to know until tomorrow morning. There is a way to calculate it, based on your delta and things like that. But, they're going to be interesting. So for an example, I'm going to pull it up right now. So Iron Net, the one that we're just talking about that got hit up quite a bit. So it finished the day at 32.13. It's up $10, $10.25 after hours, say. Like I said, those orders came in towards the end of the day. They started pouring in around 3:35 to 4. There was probably 15, 20 alerts on this. Some 9:17 expiration, some 10:15 expiration. And like I said, the strikes were all over the place, and they're deep in the money. So that can kind of be deceptive. But the price that they're paying for these and the amount of money that they're putting down, that to me is an indication that they're extremely bullish. They know something's up. And clearly, I mean, it went up 10, now it's up 10.50. So they knew something was going on,
I want to go back to one thing that you just said real quick.
Sure.
One, Blaine, he called it VWAP, just so you're aware, so you know.
What do you call it?
I say VWAP.
Oh, yeah. What does Blaine call it?
Do I call it VWAP? Maybe I'm switching. VWAP.
VWAP?
Yeah, I think I do. VWAP.
Man, this would have been funny if I could remember her name. Does what's her face WAP or WAP?
Oh, Cardi B.
Yes.
She's WAP. Yeah, she's WAP.
That's all you got to know. So my actual point, I swear, was this. You said you actually back this up with some technical analysis. Yep. My question is, when some of this stuff starts to hit and you see these unusual options activity start to arise, speed to entry has to be one of the most important things, right? You could easily miss out on the first big part of a move. So how do you balance between the technical analysis and then being able to quickly act? Is it stuff that you are doing beforehand as you're continuing to monitor specific tickers or sectors, or is it you see the unusual options flow and then you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 quick things to check out, and then you make your entry?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, just based on me doing my own DD, preparing my watch list from the night prior, a lot of the time you do see a lot of the same tickers being purchased. You'll see the Apples, you'll see the Teslas, Amazon, Upstart is one that we've been seeing so much lately. Affirm was one from last week. We see AMD is another one that's always hit. Boeing is popular. So those popular ones, I tend to, I keep them in a watch list. And there are some that I feel super comfortable trading. For example, NVIDIA, I've pretty much traded NVIDIA every single day, one way or the other, for probably close to 2 months now. So I feel really, really comfortable trading NVIDIA. So when I do see some of these, some of this flow coming in, I feel like I'm kind of a step ahead, just because I know I've been trading this thing. I've been staring at it for so many hours, so many days that, I feel super confident when I do see the flow coming in on it to act on it. But the one that's tricky, to your point, is we'll see, for example, there was one a couple weeks ago, Zynga, which is some sort of gaming company. We don't see much of Zynga. That's not one that comes in very often. So that was one where I definitely had to check back. I mean, and the contracts were super cheap. So I actually took a flyer on it, and it ended up paying off. So a lot of the time when we do see these weird, tickers that don't normally come up, and they're repeated hitters, meaning it's not just one that comes in, it's 4, 5, 6 throughout the day, and they keep on coming. And even if that price of the price that they paid for those, on unusual whales, it'll show you it's increasing. So although the price is still going up, they're still buying it. So that's also another bullish indicator, that, even though this thing could have gone up 25 cents since they purchased their first contract, they're still bullish on it. So therefore I am as well. If it's a 1.7 million on Zynga, then you got to act quick because that thing will move fast.
So I got to dive right into this. This is probably, I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's probably a long conversation, and honestly, this could get really boring quick. But I have to ask one question, and that is, again, speed to entry has to be, I'm sure, of significant importance here. But my question is this: options are a derivative financial instrument that is not just used for pure, speculation, right? I mean, people use them for a lot of reasons. They could be using them to diversify, or in a particular stock. They could be using it to try to match up timeframes with their investing strategy. They could be using it to defend against a changing market or a rotation, right? It's not just a pure. Right. So I'd say all that because how do you quickly know what a whale in one of these options plays is doing, right? It's not just I think the stock's going to go up or the stock's going to go down. How do you decipher that so quickly and then say that person is just making a bet that we're going to hit the rip here and let me hop on?
Right. So again, the amount of money that they're putting on is quite telling. And like I was saying before, let's say IronNet, 1.7 on IronNet, huge amount of money, right? Even for something like Apple, that would still be a large amount of money, but like 100K on IronNet, I would take a look at it. Whereas 100,000 on Apple, that's one to me that's, maybe they're just scalping it, a quick day trade. In terms of timeliness on these, you could miss it. But for me, I'm more concerned on making sure that everything checks out before I do enter a trade. There are some days where I'll make one trade. There are others, maybe I make 20. If it feels rushed to me and I'm kind of just, I'm just going to get into it. It's not for me. It's probably not going to work out either. So I really try and make sure that, the flow that's coming in that I'm seeing also kind of checks out with some technicals, maybe some news that's going on as well. There are a lot of variables for sure, but to me, I would rather not make a trade than, lose 20% on it just because, just because I'm seeing something come in.
I want to switch gears to another question real quick. How does your charting compare to someone who's just a long trader?
Ooh, great question.
Yeah.
Zing.
I mean, to be honest with you,
is it the same?
Really good.
No, definitely not. We do have some technical traders in the group that we trade with. And, there are times where I'm like, hey, Pete, you mind checking out what do you see on the video here? Because, again, I'm kind of keeping my eyes on the flow with OPT. The others are kind of doing their own technical analysis. We got some people who were there checking on the news. So everybody kind of took upon their own role and to do that kind of stuff. But technically wise, I'm more of a person that less is more. Like I don't want to see my charts all clogged up with all these lines. I mean, I'm super basic when it comes to that. I use Bollinger Bands. I use VWAP. On the bottom of my charts, I have the MACD and volume bars, of course. But I don't, if I'm looking at a stock after hours and I'm trying to, maybe project where I think it's going, I will throw on the moving averages. But during the day, I really don't. I would prefer just to have it clean, not much going on, and kind of keep it simple. This thing is hard enough. I don't want to make it even more complicated.
When I'm going to enter an options contract and I've got all these various strike prices and dates, what is that application box called? Is there a name for that?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean on that one.
Yeah. So like if I can, man, how do I ask this? If I could just show you a screenshot of it, right? So It's just all the list of options contracts, whether it's a call or a put, and then you've got all the strike dates and the strike prices. It's not that's not a level one, right? It's just a trading box.
Right.
That's all I'm trying to say. So are you looking for like kind of pricing arbitrage where you can see like for the value of that strike price, that premium is way too low or way too high? Like, are you looking for something that's mispriced? Or do you just immediately say, I know I want to be in on a weekly, or I want to be in on a September 30th, and that's how you choose it?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean now. So, I mean, when it comes to finding, undervalued contracts, not as much. I'm focused on really seeing. I'm just going to pull one up here just so I can kind of use that as an example. But let's see. Okay, so today at 3:54, Plug Power, PLUG, they bought October 15th, $25 calls. They costed them $1.49. So in options, that would be $149 for one contract. They put $33,000 on that, and it was a split. So the types of purchases you're going to get are sweeps, splits, or block. And the way, just to make it kind of simple for everybody listening, sweeps are like, I want this now. I'll pay for the extra shipping. Get this to my house right now. A split, still pretty aggressive, but not as aggressive as a sweep. And a block is a pre-negotiated price. So they may, they could leave it on the bid. When it gets filled, it gets filled. It's a pre-negotiated, so it's not as bullish as a sweep would be. So those are all different variables that we see that are coming in as well. Then, of course, I'll hop over quickly. I'll look at my chart. If it checks out there, I also, I like to see the Greeks. I like to see the delta, the theta on these. Make sure those all check out as well before I'm entering. Like I said, I would rather have a higher win percentage than just to enter a bunch of these and kind of hope that they work out, where I feel like if everything checks out on what I'm looking at, more often than not, I will be right on them.
Got it. So I'm all over the map here. So thanks for keeping up with me.
No,
really
you're good, man.
Because I'm just bouncing around to all these things that I feel like you may be doing at some part of your trading day.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely I wouldn't say a newer type of method behind trading, but I think it now with Twitter and everything like that, I think it's becoming much more mainstream than it ever was in the past, if that makes sense.
I agree 1,000%. And to your point, it's more like it's newer to people like us who are retail, right. somewhat one, maybe younger, two, kind of starting on their own. They're not trained professionals. They didn't sit on a sales and trading desk for their career. They were not taught this business via phones, right? So,
absolutely.
I think you're spot on, right? It's newer to the vast population.
I remember looking at this last year. I was, on FinTwit just scrolling around, and I had no idea anything about options trading. The only thing that I was ever told about it, you got to be careful. You're going to lose all your money. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, totally. You can lose all your money, in commons as well. You can't just, kind of throw shit at the wall and hope it sticks. It's not how it works. You actually have to learn how to do it. So, but a year ago, I had no clue when people were like, oh my God, a call was bought on Apple for this amount of money. I was like, okay, so what does that mean? I had no idea. But now I think even the newest of new, that's an automatic something that they're learning about rather than, waiting a year and a half like I did. I had no clue.
No, I agree. And again, it's just one of those things where I think before, just even a couple of years ago, I mean, options trading and the fees associated with it probably made a lot of it prohibitive, right? So I think just in general, it's newer again to a lot of us. Blaine and I were talking earlier about kind of order flows, right? And using level twos. And there's a lot of people that obviously do that when trading commons. And can you kind of dissect and compare the two, right? What you're look like in terms of your option flow. And then if you're thinking in terms of trading common stock and what people are using the level 2 for. Of course, order flow and volume and price volume relationships there is very important on the common side. My whole question here is how is it the same exact principle? Is it the same concept? And how does what you're looking at from an option flow standpoint match up to what normal common stock traders are seeing on level 2s?
Yeah. So alike yet different. To your point before, the options market, I don't know the exact number, but I think at this point right now, we're on pace to blow out any year in the past with the amount of money that we're throwing at options over a year's time. I don't know the exact number, what it was, but we're on pace to blow that out. So as they're becoming more, accessible to everyone, I mean, now you could trade on your phone. You don't even need a computer. I feel as if the options market is now kind of driving the overall commons market. And for an example, if somebody's buying a ton of options, the market makers need to offset that with shares. So that could also play a factor. Or, for an example, maybe one of these hedge funds, they're loading heavy on some call options and they see on that level 2, oh, maybe they could take out a wall. Guess who has money to do that? They do. They can knock that wall down themselves. So it's very interesting just to see from retail's perspective on, the difference in how much money they have to kind of make these moves happen. Whereas we're kind of just sitting for the ride. And that's another reason why I like the options flow, because this is quote unquote smart money. Sometimes maybe you'll get a retail trader who's throwing, 60, 70,000 on one of these. It could be them,
That's
know,
just
but
you, right?
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
But but if it was like for an example, if how many retail traders are going to be throwing 7.2 mil on IronNet? I don't know many. So
no,
that right. And it just goes to show that, like, hey, if smart money's doing this, they have a lot more money to do all of the research. They have teams designated to research these companies and, maybe look for potential catalysts or something like that. Like, I'd rather not bet against them the majority of the time, because ultimately you're probably going to lose.
You just touched on one thing, and I immediately thought about kind of market makers and manipulation, right? And I think a lot of times everyone's always like, oh, it's retail versus professional, hedge funds, hedgies, whatever you want to call them. Your special name for them is fine with me. So that's like the narrative that we always think about. And so does it ever cross your mind when you're entering trades that, like, hey, there's enough money on the other side of this where if someone really wants it to stay below $6, it will happen, right? They can make that happen before the options expiration, right? If the open interest is X amount, you look into all that. So does that kind of stuff cross your mind, or do you truly feel like there's enough market makers on each side of the trade where there's enough healthy competition where that's not the case? Or do you try to take that into account? And are you kind of one of those folks that says, no, I mean, if they want to keep it below $6, it'll happen?
I would say that if they want to keep it below $6, they're probably going to keep it below $6. I mean, just from an overall, market view, I think it's like 20% of the money that's in the market is retail money. So ultimately, they're probably going to win. And I mean, look, we saw GameStop, we saw AMC, they're taking off, but or they had taken off, but it wasn't nearly to the level that maybe retail would have expected. I mean, I was seeing $500,000 price targets on AMC. I don't think that's happened yet. So I would say that if they want to keep it under a certain price, they probably will. And an example of this is probably about a month ago. Apple was teetering, the 149.80 to the 151.20-ish range. And it was Friday. This was actually last OPEX week. So it was like August 20th, I believe. So that's the third week of the market for that month where the monthly options expire. We saw an absolute battle. I had no position. I try not to trade zero DTEs too often, and zero DTE meaning 0 days till expiry. because they move super fast, because if they're not in the money, they're going to be worthless. So we were watching this though. Apple, it was a battle. This thing in the last 30 minutes was just ripping over 150, ripping right back down. It was insane. The way that it was moving for a Friday over the summer, which are, typically pretty slow, but somebody wanted it under 150, somebody wanted it over, and they were really fighting it out. So it was just interesting to watch. I mean, I would say that retail definitely isn't in the driver's seat when it comes to kind of controlling prices.
No, yeah, I agree. But I do. So it's funny. I can't say obviously too much. I actually know somebody who loves to sell options
Yeah, absolutely.
on Amazon and Tesla. And when he's selling options, I mean, they're in lots of $10 to $12 million.
Oh shit.
I mean, and he's a retail trader, but technically that's like institutional type money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And oh my God. And he just rakes in money selling options to idiots like me who are like, yeah, I really enjoy the weeklies here. Thanks so much. So
right. He collects premium on those.
Oh my God, so much, because he's selling all those options. He's making so many premium. Anyway, that's how the rich stay rich. I got to ask one thing. You don't have to drop names about services or companies. Totally your call, Chris. But and this topic could be a whole podcast. But can you talk to us about dark pools, and can you explain it to us, as Blaine would like to say, like I'm five?
Yeah. So lucky for me, we had one of the smartest people I've ever spoken to. Her name is Mel Stone, and she's with Black Box Stocks, which is another, it's another service that offers options flow. They offer dark pool. I mean, there's so many of them. Unusual Whales does it as well. I know there's a new company, Chatter Quant, that's coming out, and that's more social sentiment based, but it's also bringing in options flow dark pools. So about the dark pools. So this was also, I would say, I kind of knew what they were, but I kind of misconstrued the whole meaning. And what I mean by that is, with dark pool prints, those are big, big, big money orders that are not going through your normal exchange, or, it could tank the market, right? So today there was one I know on GM, and it was at it, and it'll tell you a specific price, and they'll say dark pool print. The problem with dark pool prints is, you actually, as much as somebody says that, oh, it was a buy, oh, it was a sell, you really don't know in the moment. Mm-hmm. So this is not it's not specified. It doesn't have to be, but it's good to keep it in the back of your mind. And I know some of these platforms, they will have a bar that'll show dark pool print at this price. Something that I learned from Mel about that was, this isn't for intraday, but this is, when you go and kind of look back at it, those dark pool prints, obviously huge amounts of money. Rather than think of them as buys and sells, think of them as support or resistance. So think of that big block that was either purchased, if it was a purchase order, then you can make the assumption, after looking back, maybe after the day and seeing where that stock finished, it held on to that as a support. So now you kind of know this is the support here. It's going to take a lot of selling pressure to pull that down, and vice versa on the other end. If it's a sell, that's the new resistance. It's going to take a lot to break through that big dark pool print, right? So that was something that, it's super interesting to look back at, intraday, it could go through it either way. But I know there a couple of days ago, this actually may have been last Friday with NVIDIA, there was a huge print, and we didn't really know what to make of it, but it turned out it got up to that level 2 times and it rejected pretty fast. So, we kind of made the assumption that was actually a sell, and now we kind of have an idea of what that resistance is. So if we bottom feed, I call when something's beat down, and we pick up some calls on it, we kind of know that's going to be a difficult area for it to kind of break through.
Yeah. But so I got to ask the really dumb question though.
Yeah.
these dark pool trades, these large aftermarket trades, or whatever you want to call them, or block trade, like, or, I'm sorry, whenever they occur, like, what is the significance to you? And then how do you turn that around into what your options play will be, right? I mean, just because at some point you find out, where the buying or selling pressure was, obviously
Right.
not in the moment, like you said, but because you can't do anything until the next day, right? So what is the significance to you, and how does that, I guess, how does that help you decide what your next move is?
Let's say I'm going long on something, we get a huge dark pool print, maybe right below where the stock is trading at that moment, and it seems to hold up. That, to me, that's kind of a little bit of added confidence. Hey, that was a big buy there, right? We're making that assumption based on all we know about the dark pool, that this is going to act as support. So, we could play off that, rather than, maybe it drops a couple cents. We know that, look, we have a nice support right here. Somebody smart bought a lot of these shares for a reason. Let's play this out. Whereas maybe, it's a sell and we're struggling to break through that. It might be a good time to just cut our contracts, just because it's like, it's going to take a lot to get through this. I don't know if it's there at this moment. Yeah. Take the L, on to the next. Again, I mean, there are traders who specifically trade off the dark pool. And like I said before, Mel Stone is incredible at this. She kind of gave OPT and I a whole new perspective when it came to, the dark pool, because I knew what it was, but I didn't know really the significance, or, maybe I was following too closely to what people were saying on Twitter. Oh, that's got to be a buy. Oh, that's got to be a sell, where, we can kind of take a step back and kind of identify it for ourselves.
That's awesome. I mean, I get it's somewhat of like a confirmation play now. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Dark pools, I don't know. They have a pretty interesting connotation attached to it, right? Like it's not necessarily shady, but I guess maybe shady is kind of a connotation, but you guys find a lot of value in them with the way that you trade. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I don't want to defend it, but at the same time, like, if whoever was selling or buying that much of a specific stock, if they brought that to the market, and God forbid it was a sell and it was something that you were in, and that came across, that price would absolutely tank, because everybody would be panicking,
Mm-hmm.
So it's intended to kind of, I guess, protect, but it is shady, and a lot of people really don't know much about them or how to read them. So, again, that's another acquired skill. And I'm one that says that, I can learn something new about this every single day. Once you think you know it all, you're going to get humbled one way or the other,
Why can't the orders, you may have just answered it. The orders can't go through regular exchanges because they would tank the stock. Is that?
Yeah, that could be a reason for it. So think about it. I mean, imagine, I don't know, I'm just going to throw out a random number. Like, imagine 4 million shares were just dumped, at 358. It would probably cause some mass panic, especially if you knew what direction. If it was a sell, everybody would be selling that. People would think there's a reason for it. I mean, I think that's the intention behind it. But I know with AMC, you see it a lot, that a lot of the people are saying that it's, pure manipulation. Could be. It's not really for me to judge.
Couldn't you use some of this order flow? Like, I day trade like low float stocks. So this is like slightly outside of my wheelhouse, but couldn't you look at this to like see these orders that are coming in at close to like build a watch list for the next day for day trading common stocks? Like, is that a strategy that people use because people are betting on it to be bullish the next day or bearish the next day, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, every time I see a dark pool, we have some, Twitter bots and stuff, they send the alerts about, 4 million share dark pool print on Palantir at whatever time at this price. That's kind of just something for us to, maybe we jot it down, go back and look at the end of the day, see where we finished up. But yeah, I mean, it's just, again, it's another indicator. I mean, if I was 100% accurate with it, I would be, everybody would use it, but it's just another indicator, it's some of these services, they try and guess and say, oh yeah, that was a buy or that was a sell, but there really is no way to, in the moment, identify whether it was a buy or sell. Kind of have to wait for it to shake out.
We could talk about dark pools, I think, for a long time, because I think not only is there like a lot of misconception about it, but the value of that information, as you've already talked about, is I think it's really interesting. That order flow you have to get from a specific service. Is that correct?
You know what? On Twitter, you'll see it quite a bit of people kind of calling out these dark pool prints, but there are a lot of services that will show you, or they will alert you when there are these prints. Whales does it. I know Black Box does it as well. They'll indicate whether there was a dark pool print or not, and you could see it on Twitter too. There are some accounts, I forget, there's one, it's like Trade with Alerts or something. They always post about large prints in the dark pool.
That's awesome. Blaine, what have we not talked about from an unusual options activity standpoint? Or Chris, what do you think we haven't talked about? I'm curious. It's not like we talked about one thing. We just like went around the whole gambit in no very specific order. So
yeah, something that I would add, again, I know I briefly touched on this, but today there was one. It was the ticker. You guys may have actually traded it. ANY. I don't know if you guys play that at all. ANY. To be honest with you, I have no idea what they do. Don't know. Don't really care too much.
Blaine's all over it.
Yeah.
Beautifully. I talked about ANY and singing today. Love it.
Nice. Yeah.
I just think it's been trading well. So I've been trading it.
Right. So on the service that I use, I saw that the call to put ratio was 100% to 0. So there were 14,326 in calls, 0 put flow. So I took the play. I would say, and to me, recently I've seen this one a lot, but in the past I hadn't, and I don't know anything about the ticker, like I said, but I saw this hit over and over and over and over again. So I waited for an entry. I used my Bollinger Bands to get my entry point, and then I took the trade, and it panned out well. But when you see the repeated hits, so multiple buys at multiple times, usually on the same strike is something that'll really intrigue me. And strike meaning, let's say they're going for the $8 calls for Friday. If I see that hit over and over and over again, as that price is increasing and they're still buying, then I would consider myself to also buy.
What a hit, especially on that one today. I mean, the stock price, I have no idea what happened with the premiums on the options contracts, but the stock was up 26% today, which is September 15th. I left any today with like 30, 37 or something percent. Like it was a good trade for sure. But and that also leads me to think, what is this about? So then, maybe I'll check the short interest. One play that I did extremely well on because of the options flow. This is dating back, almost 2 weeks now, was ATER. This one reminded me a lot of support. Yeah, it reminded me a lot of support. It was getting hit over and over and over again. And I was like, what is this? Why are they doing this? Right. So, you continue to see it. And then, the next couple of days, you start to see, short interest on this is at 60%, people freaking out about it on Twitter. But guess what? They loaded it already. It started that move already. They had all those options contracts. I like that you guys are actually on the same trades. I find that to be really interesting. But
yeah, and you know what?
Reasons.
Right. And I'll say recently, I've been like 99% of the time just scalping because I don't really feel comfortable with where we're at regarding the overall market. Like, I don't want to get everything dumped the next morning. So I'm really reluctant to hold things overnight. But the things that have been playing have been these, the quote unquote meme short squeeze stocks. So I have been playing them much more. I played support. I played ATER. I played root. I played NA today. It's been working. So I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to kind of go with it.
This is sort of blowing my mind because you're talking about like the move started and they preloaded it and then the short interest and all of this. But I was on the phone with someone and was going over the ATER chart, and we trade using EMAs, and like we went back and looked at all the EMAs converging at one point, and then the EMAs crossing, and we're like, this was the signal. This is where the move started. Like, so totally in our world, like that's a whole separate thing. But we can justify, like, we can see the move starting here because of X, Y, and Z.
Right. Yeah. So, like I said, some people think that options flow is like taboo or it's nonsense, but it's just another indicator. Just like you guys use the EMAs, I use that as an indicator. I wish it was 100% accurate, but of course it's not. It's not always a winning trade.
I want to ask one last question.
Sure.
Two last questions. I want to give you a chance to dispel a rumor. That's so stupid. A misconception about options trading. And that is, you already talked about it. So I think I already know the answer, which is good. I think a lot of people think that if you are options trading, given the math behind it and the way it's structured, you're always looking for 100% gainer or a 10 bagger.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people stay away from it. We have had a lot of people on this podcast, and Blaine has smartly surrounded herself with a lot of people that preach don't have to hit home runs. You can just hit singles and doubles. That includes an individual by the name of Singles and Doubles. What say you about that misconception that options trading is all about trying to hit that home run, that 10 bagger, that 100% ripper?
Yeah, I would say that, early on, it's definitely very tempting because they do tend to move fast. And to me, if you actually take the time and learn how to trade options rather than do what I did for the first, year and a half and just listen to everybody else say, oh, if you play options, you're going to lose money. Sit down, actually learn. There are a million resources, whether they're, paid or free. You can learn how to do this. To me, it's the best way to keep up. And if, you're considering doing this for a living, I think it's extremely hard to do it with commons. The risk is obviously there with options, but there's also a floor. You can't lose negative money on an options contract. So, but it also gives you the opportunity to play both sides of the market. I would say, 75% of the people that are going to listen to this podcast probably don't even know how to short something. And I don't, recommend shorting anything. But if you do want to play the downside, you will learn how to play a put, and you do have limited risk in a way. For me, I'm super set in my rules. And to be honest with you, over the past summer, at least, there's not been one time where I've held something more than 30% down in the red. People will be like, oh, where's your loss? Where are your losses? And I was like, if you want me to send you minus 30% every time, I will. That's fine. But you're not going to see that minus 100% from me because I'm dead set. I'm taking my L happily, and I'll walk away with, 70% of the money I started with. I'm not here to try and blow up my account. But, like I said, when you do catch an option and it runs, it's a great feeling because the money that you make on that, whereas if you were playing them in commons, is much, much different.
So we are here to learn, all of us, Blaine included, me included, and
me too.
Everybody who is listening. This is all about us learning. So before we wrap up, can you send them to a few places that you'd recommend to learn some of what you know?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously I'm going to plug myself.
Nice.
On our YouTube channel, we're actually going to drop our options course. our flow trading strategy is already up there. I'm going to be dropping a, Bollinger Band tutorial, how I use them, just the basic stuff. But in terms of, people to follow, I would recommend anybody that I'm following. I would 100% recommend you following them as well on Twitter. A lot of them give great information. Everybody's on there for a reason. I'd like to think, at least, to try and get better, try to learn, and, make money. That's ultimately the goal. So on that end, for sure, those are the people that I'd tell you to follow. But when it comes to, in terms of services, Unusual Whales is an excellent intro to options flow. You will also get the dark pools. They have, a bunch of different, they have sentiment trading now, where they weigh what is being talked about on Twitter, Reddit, those places. You can kind of develop a strategy based on that. I know a couple people who trade solely on sentiment now. There's a new tool actually that just came out, ChatterQuant, which is another awesome tool. And that's a sentiment-based trading platform where you literally will get, these are the last stocks that are trending in the last 24 hours on Twitter, Reddit. You can kind of gather some information from there. Where's the volume going to be going forward in that next day?
I'll throw in one thing for
you,
Chris. So about 15 months ago, I don't know when it was, I did find the Unusual Whale Discord. And there's a lot of really smart people in there. They're all there to learn options. They're all trading options for the most part. And if you spend some time kind of just in there reading what they have to say, the lingo they're using, the trades that they're taking and closing, they're sharing wins, they're sharing losses. I don't know if you have to partake or be a contributor or not. I know that a long time ago, I had learned quite a bit just from, being in there and reading and paying attention. And so that's certainly helpful. I'm sure there's lots of other Discords, but you had mentioned Unusual Whales. And I know that there's a very large Discord there as well. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, in terms of Discord, like I said, I'm not really huge into Discord, but there are definitely a few that I'd vouch for. LPP is one that's a free Discord. If you're interested in it, just, hit me up in the DMs. I always keep my DMs open. I'll send you there. There's another one, King Street with King Blamey. That is an excellent resource as well, because they don't just focus on the call outs, if that makes sense. They have a whole section based on education for you to learn. So it's not just, people kind of relying on King Blamey to call out some sick plays. I would say that I'm a huge advocate for people actually learning how to do it. You might be doing well off someone else's calls, but just like in everything else, people got to cool off. They're not always going to be 100% accurate on everything they call out. So learning how to do it yourself, you're not going to get mad at other people if it doesn't go your way. You're going to take it, you're going to take accountability for it and kind of grow from there.
That's awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate it. I'm fascinated by not only options trading, but, the unusual options activity and flow options. I'm sorry, the flow of options. I love it. I think it's really interesting. I don't trade it that way at all. I wish I did. I don't feel confident enough in it. So I will certainly take a lot of what you said and try to learn more. How about you?
Yeah,
Blaine?
definitely. You guys should, like I said, if we ever get this, live trading, I'd love for you guys to just pop in for the first 30 minutes on a busy day, and you guys will see it. It gets kind of crazy, but it's cool to see, especially if we're able to, have our platform up and running in the background, so you could see how fast some of these things come in. It's a rush, it's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds awesome.
That's awesome. All right, Chris, good luck to you. Thanks, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Best of luck going forward.
Thank you so much to Joel Edwards, our producer, and Chesley Lowe for the awesome banjo music. See you soon.